Hello, I'm Christine Check. I did a live show the other day to answer some questions that I've been getting asked recently about what it's like to be an entertainer in the gentleman's club industry. For those who don't really know who I am, I've been a dancer now for over 6 years, and I've been able to help other entertainers in the gentleman's club industry achieve their desired monthly income. Here are some of the questions that I went over the other day during that live chat. Let's get into them, shall we? The first and one of the most common questions that I get asked a lot is, how much money do I produce a month on average? Well, for the last 3 years now, I've been able to average anywhere from $40,000 a month to $50,000 a month. Another question that I get asked is, how long did it take me to start seeing my money increase? As well as, what did it take to start getting results? Well, in the beginning, I really had no idea what I was doing. And I would just copy every single entertainer that I saw and what they were doing just to try to even understand how they were able to convince these customers to get dances with them and spend massive amounts of money. And every single night I would go home feeling frustrated and angered that I wasn't making the amount that I wanted to be making. And sometimes I would almost end up convincing myself that I would be better off making more money with a basic 9-to-5 job. But once I discovered and I started going through the mental click system, I started to finally understand what I needed to start doing and how I needed to start changing my perspective and my actions at the club. First, I started changing my work ethic by just going in earlier and staying in later, making an effort to make sure that I talked to every single customer that was in the club, as well as make sure that I followed the script that I learned from the mental click system. And almost immediately, I started to notice a change in my income almost overnight. I went from barely making $400 to $500 a night to exceeding $1,000 plus every single night. The mental click system gave me 5 different mental clicks to start conversating with clients into the VIP rooms with. Now, another question that I get is, what are those 5 different mental clicks that I've made? Well, the first click is understanding the customer and how their brain works to gain their attention. By being able to show the customer that you're the exciting new thing that they've been craving all along is very, very important. One thing that I hated in the beginning of my dancing career was not being able to get the clients' attention and by being told no constantly. It felt like I was being a bother to them by even just trying to talk to the clients that had just walked in the door. However, I learned that the first click is learning how that brain processes information. Now, there are 3 parts of the brain that processes information and goes through whenever someone gives their attention to anything. The croc brain, the midbrain, and the neurocortex. Now, the croc brain makes sure that your message is effective and you make sure you know how to deliver it. You must know how to package and pitch your ideas perfectly. After the croc brain is the midbrain. This allows us to understand higher levels of complexities, like social interactions. And finally, after the midbrain is the neurocortex. This is the most advanced part of the brain. It gives us the greatest degree of intelligence compared to other animals. Once you take your time to understand this process, you can tailor your approach to be unique, exciting, and logical, allowing you to get the clients' attention and to keep them wanting more. I remember in the beginning, when I first started, I felt like the customers just saw me as another regular dancer. I would buy numerous amount of different outfits, and I learned new stage performances just to even help me stand out from the other entertainers. But despite this, I knew my biggest problem was being able to keep the conversation with my customers going and how to keep them entertained. I slowly learned how to adjust my way of talking and communicating with my clients. With my conversations now, I make sure the customers stay entertained by asking them different questions to keep them interested, as well as showing them that I want to have a good time with them and I want to have a fun night with them. The second click that I have is to make sure that my intentions stay the same. The one problem I would run into all the time is that I would get the client excited, but then they would get just bored fast. After that, the next thing I knew, the client wasn't even interested in me anymore. And I know that happens to a lot of other entertainers. An example of how I keep the client's excitement and attention is by having our conversations revolve around my client, not his money. I also like to always make sure that the customer is enjoying themselves. Making sure that I am staying positive and happy is the really big key out of all of this, as well as showing them that I'm not here for their money, but I'm here to have a good time. I know this is something easier said than done, especially on the nights where it might be just slower in the club, or you might be really stressed about hitting your nightly goal. However, if you truly try to keep your intentions the same with every single customer, you will stand out apart from the other entertainers. On those slow nights in the club, I would make sure they were having a good time. I would also try to figure out what their thoughts were about the experiences that they were having. By letting the customer see that you care about what the experiences that they had, as well as you want to give them just only a good time with the customer, they will see you differently from the other entertainers. Customers that are consistently coming to the club wanting to have a good time, and if all they get is entertainers just making the client feel like they are just there to take their money, then they're not going to want to do anything, since they just feel like the whole time they're just going to be taken advantage of or maybe even ripped off. The third mental click is the dopamine drip system. This is about consistently making sure that the customers are feeling a euphoric experience by having their dopamine drip. One thing that I noticed that during the dance is that afterwards, it almost seemed like the customer would always regret or have remorse for paying for the dance. And I'm sure you can feel the same way most of the time, right? Well, after doing a little bit of research, it turns out that this is because they are having what's called a dopamine crash. This just means that they're feeling sad. And because of this, you need to learn to take control of the dopamine in their brain by learning dopamine triggers. Doing little things to make sure that the customer is having a fun time during the conversation and that they are physically feeling good is really and extremely important. Keeping their dopamine drip going is the most important thing, because keeping their drip going is almost keeping their excitement going in you. The longer they stay interested in you, the more time and the more money they want to spend on you. First, by using the conversation to establish rapport and building that first connection, you entertain them by talking about different topics they like to talk about or the experiences that the two of you could potentially be having. Once you have them in the VIP rooms, you have to keep things entertaining and different so that when the timer goes off at the end of the dance, the customer is only going to be begging to be spending more and more time with you. The fourth mental click is your social media. But before getting into that, I want to talk about slow nights in the club. The main thing I dreaded with every girl in the club is slow days. Now, let's just talk about how much we hate slow days. Most of you are probably doing something like this and have a system working for you. Maybe that system you are using into your liking, and that's great. If so, keep it up. However, there is always someone doing it better, or someone who found a simpler way to do it with more efficiency. Now, your social media is your ticket to getting rid of your slow nights. Now, I'm not talking about getting famous or by allowing people to know that you're an entertainer at the club. However, you need a profile to be able to attract and stay in touch with your clients, with a sound script system that will sell them. Keeping up to date with my social media to get the clients in and out of the clubs, as well as keeping the current customers that I have interested and committed to see me, no matter what club I might be working at, is crucial to my success. Now, I'm not saying you absolutely need to have a social media to succeed. However, it does help making those slow nights just go away and make it so much easier. Having your social media is one of the things that you can really have that can save you from those slow nights. Keeping up to date with your social media page allows your customers to see and just be reminded of the fun the two of you had, reliving that fun experiences you were able to provide for them over and over again. It keeps the customers you currently have just drooling over you, wanting and craving you more, counting down the seconds to see you again. This also allows new customers to see you and become intrigued by your style and your moves. This, in turn, could convince new customers to come into the club specifically just to see you and only you. Now, I kind of want to ask you guys a question. What is the best and the most efficient way someone can master those 4 skills without needing to dedicate years of your life to studying books, or trying to figure out those skills without trial and error? or how professional athletes become professional athletes. Guys, the only true way to become a professional is by getting a coach or a mentor. I allowed myself to get that proper help and that one-on-one mentoring that showed me the proper methods and techniques that I should be using and implementing in my own life. Honestly, this was one of the hardest things for me. I had a hard time accepting that I needed professional one-on-one work to be able to finally understand everything fully. I was convinced that I could just learn everything from my experiences alone or by living through my friend's experience. The mentoring really allowed me to see what mistakes I was making and the different areas that I was having a hard time with. They were able to teach me different tricks and show me different perspectives that I would have never thought of if I had not gotten mentored. I really struggled with being able to hold conversations with any customer that I met. It was hard for me to make that connection from making normal small talk conversation to be able to convince them into those VIP rooms. My mentor showed me how my conversations should be sounding and how they should be going. They gave me different tips that I could be using to keep the conversation going in the way that I wanted my conversations to go. I would do this more often, and hopefully I'll be seeing you guys next week. I go over in more detail on a complimentary webinar that will be provided to you in the link below, edrwebinar.com. And if you are interested in a complimentary phone consultation, apply for the next available slot at edrwebinar.com/apply. I'll see you guys next week.